G'day guys, welcome back to TIG Tech. My name's Petru, and in this video we're doing an interview with a cybersecurity analyst who also happens to be one of my students, and she's transitioned from being a student all the way into becoming a cybersecurity analyst, and we're going to talk to her about all the things that she's learned along the way. What's it like to go from being a student into the workforce, particularly as a cybersecurity analyst, which most of the jobs that are available at the moment for entry-level positions revolve around that sort of stuff. So we're going to have an interview with Monika. Welcome, Monika.
Hi, Petru. Nice to see you. It's just amazing to see you after such a long time.
Same to you, Monika. It's been a few years now. You're one of my students in 2020.
Yeah.
2020 class, yeah.
Yeah, I think in May and June 2020.
Yeah. So, Monika, the main reason why we're doing this interview is to raise some sort of not so much awareness, but some sort of knowledge about what it's like to transition from being a student and then getting into a cyber awareness position. A lot of my students over the years have had that one question. More so anxiety, I guess, about what it's going to be like to transition into the actual job. So you might see advertisements for being a cybersecurity analyst, and then you might think, is it just looking at Splunk boards all day? What's included in the job? So give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are and where you've come from in terms of your study, and what sort of work do you do?
Yeah, that's a beautiful. And thanks, first of all, thanks a lot, Petru. It's a pleasure meeting you, and having me here is a privilege for me, something I could do for Victoria University. I should say one thing before I start, that whatever I am today is all because of my teachers, the education that I got, and I wore my head always in front of my teachers, Victoria University, anything for them. So about my journey, as you asked about what the role I'm doing, let me start with a very, very small, brief snapshot of how I started and then what I'm doing right now. My journey started like long time back in 2006 when I did my master's in computers, wherein I didn't know what actually I'm going to do in computers. But then I was hired in the campus recruitment as a software engineer. Absolutely, I had no idea what a software engineer does. I remember I was just, remembering the codes. Maybe I'll be asking, maybe I have to memorize all of them. So that's not actually it is. And then over the years, like slowly moved into security testing, which was very exciting. I did my SDLCs, slowly moved into Scrum methodologies, etc. That was a very brief of 7-8 years what I did. And then over the year, like I was actually doing some risks of work as well in testing. And then I had absolutely no idea what a cybersecurity is. That was something new. I had absolutely no idea. The day I joined Melbourne, I just came to know about this course of cybersecurity, which was very scary for me, to be honest. And I said, no, I cannot do that. And somehow, I don't know how, maybe that was the best decision of my life. I just enrolled into it. And I just said, all right, let's do it. And then after doing that, it was amazing, something that actually turned my whole life. So after that, of course, all thanks to my teachers, I met you, Petru. Once I did that course, I just had that basic foundation and did some voluntary work as a security analyst. I started with Victoria, and then was all into risks-based testing, etc., which I did here. Now, actually coming to a question, I actually worked as a cyber security analyst in Superloop. That's actually where I landed in. So the work I used to do was basically to work on tools like Crowdstrike detections. I was working in Vectra, Darktrace, something very, very exciting, which I haven't actually done before. It was all about, detections finding out the suspicious traffic, and then how do they actually enter our systems? How do we actually mitigate them? What is the IPs that are actually used? And then we actually do some investigations on those IPs. Is this something which is weird going on in the organization? And we do deep and dive, analysis on those IPs, detections. That's what the work I used to do in the um, not only that, it was like more of auditing work, and then worked into Vectra, Crowdstrike, so many tools I used on that. So the work I used was not only technical, but also non-technical as well. Apart from that, my work was also involved into PCI DSS. I don't know whether you've heard of NIST frameworks, ISO, worked into Splunk fundamentals. Everything, I think most of that was covered as a basic foundation in cybersecurity training, which we did in the Victoria University. So that was something, a holistic view of what I did as a cybersecurity analyst, which was, I think, no day was a day when I used to get up and say, I don't want to go to office. No, it was not like that. It was just something super exciting, always waiting. And I remember, like in Superloop, I didn't even take a single leave. I remember, yeah. So I was so excited and passionate for my work. Slowly, I came to know that my interest is more into risk advisory. So that's what the work I'm doing is more into GRC, that is governance, risk, and compliance. Right now, I'm working in a superannuation firm as a risk analyst technology. So which is basically more into, I don't know, have you heard of EPRA standards, regulatory frameworks, compliance? It's all about maintaining the right things at the right time, abiding by the standards, by the regulations, all about risk assessments, making sure that we actually abide and adhere to the regulatory standards. So that was something, a very, very brief snapshot, actually what I'm doing right now.
So, Monika, what type of company do you work for? It seems like I'm getting a vibe of, handling customer data and needing to protect information because you're talking about, legislative requirements and, compliance and all that sort of stuff. So what exactly is the type of company that you work for?
That's a good question. So actually, I work for a superannuation firm, which is Aware Super.
Okay.
It's basically more a financial company, more into investments. So you have to actually follow some standards, and if you don't follow that, it will be a big problem. You can be actually adhered with fines. We have to actually complete the breach assessments, privacy assessments on time. We have to actually abide by the standards given by EPRA. That is one of the basic requirements that is actually we have to abide by. And that is where the cybersecurity comes in. You have to actually be on toes. You have to actually know what are the latest requirements, what are the latest standards going on. And for example, if there's a breach, I'll just give you a very small example. If there's a breach that has come in and you have actually leaked the personal information of an employee, this is actually a breach. And you really, really need to inform EPRA within a particular period of time. And if you don't do that, it can actually cause a problem. It can actually cause fines. As we can just see, as per the the latest news all the time, if we hear about the fines imposed on different banks, I don't want to name them, but then yeah, that's the sort of work we do.
That's really interesting, Monika. When it comes to the legal legislation, law stuff, do you guys have a separate team of legal people that deal with which relay what the compliance is in terms of the law and legislations that the organization needs to follow, or do you have someone directly in your cyber team that manages the legalities of the organization? Do you guys work together? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, that's very exciting, and that's what the questions which were in my mind when I joined, and I think it's a very nice question. So what happens is, like, we work as a team. It's a big team of risk and compliance, not only risk, compliance, regulatory, enterprise. It's a big team. Like, we actually have to follow certain standards, some protocols, some obligations. For example, if there are some standards which are in EPRA, right? There are 6, 7 standards which you have to abide by. And according to that, we have to actually make those regulations, compliance regulations. We have to make the standards and procedures according to them. And yes, the question that you asked was like, who tells what? So different teams are assigned different work to do. For example, there is enterprise team who actually deals with the EPRA directly. And then they actually decide that these are the auditing firms which we have to comply by. We approach the auditors, for example, the consultancies, they tell us that, all right, are you complying with these standards? Are you complying with these obligations? We say, yeah, that's fine. Okay, then can you give us the proofs? All right, then, and that's the work we do, right? We actually have to be very spontaneous on, and all the time on the toes that, yes, this is the work, this is what needs to be done, and needs to be compliant by the standards, and this is what we need reported to the particular team or the industry. And now that is the whole, it's actually a whole, you can say, a life cycle, a risk framework that is actually being followed in different protocols and in different ways.
So, Monika, before you actually applied for the job or before you got into the job, were there particular questions that you had regarding the role? For example, maybe some tools that you weren't sure if you needed to know how to use beforehand, or whether there was going to be on-site training, some sort of learning program before you get into the role. What were some of those questions that you had before you started your role as a cyber analyst?
Yeah, so if you talk about, like, in my sense, like, I was like, I don't know whether I will be able to do this job, to be honest. So, having that basic foundation of cybersecurity that we had as in the course, which actually really, really helped me a lot, because it gave me that confidence, and also to talk about a certain aspect to a particular person, it actually really makes a difference when you talk in networking events or you talk in job interviews, because you have that basic foundation. And to be honest, when you actually step into a job, you learn over there. And yes, the questions which we had was, would I be able to do that tool? Am I the right person who can actually do that? Would I be actually able to crack that particular work that is given to me? And the answer is, it all depends on you. All you just have to challenge yourself every day and take it as if that's what you have to do today, right? And don't give up. It's like, even if you have to ask questions, like, do your own self analysis, do your own research as much as you can do, and people are there to help. The questions in my mind was like, how would I do that policy? How would I actually, audit that policy? How would I audit that framework? How would I actually do that tool that is Backtrace, Vectra, these two big tools? How would I do that? Answer is, everything is given in the online tutorials. Take some time, do some trainings, give that time to yourself. Be a little, I should say, be a little kind to yourself, giving that time, and tell the other person who is actually, for example, a manager, that, yeah, it will take me that much of time. So please give me, it will take me some time to understand. And they give, honestly, they give the time. For, like, I remember, like, in my first job, I was given 3 months to understand a particular tool. And after 3 months, I was really expected to work on it. So, honestly, what I used to do was, I used to do my self-analysis, even in the lunchtime. Even I have to invest some other time, or maybe another 5-10 minutes break. I used to do all my self-analysis, rather than, coming onto questions and disturbing the other person all the time. Rather than doing that, do your self-analysis, write down the questions which are, and I used to remember, like, when I had those 10 questions, at the end of the day, I was already able to answer those 6. So I was already left with only 2 or 3. So it actually starts with you. Yeah, everything happens when you actually come into the job.
So it's all about just having confidence and understanding that you're not going to get thrown into the deep end of the pool, and there's going to be someone there to help you swim, and you're not going to be alone, really. So the next question that I had here, Monika, and this is a really interesting one, but I'm guessing before you, when you were first looking at the job, before you applied for the job and got into the job, you would have had some sort of expectation about what that job was going to be like. You would have been envisioning what it would be like, what the role would be like. Um, Tell us about the reality of what the job was actually like compared to what your expectations were.
That's a good question. I remember when I got the offer of information security risk analyst, I was very scared. I thought, I don't know whether I'll be able to do it because the roles and responsibilities were like the manager said, Monika, you have to be on the toes. You have to do this, everything you have to do. But then, yes, it actually seems a bit challenging and scary when you look at the job descriptions, to be honest. But once you go into uh, once you start doing work, as I said, like give yourself some time, do things step by step. When they'll be giving you work, they won't be giving you all at once. They'll be giving you time. They'll be giving you the methodology. They'll be giving you one-on-ones, trainings. But all I can say with my experiences, like, you always learn by experiences, that whenever you ask questions, do your homework first, do your research analysis first, and make best use of the manager's time, because he'll only give you half an hour, 1 hour, maybe 1.5 hours. But then your questions should be very, very valid, and you should be able to ask them, even if only if you really need to ask them. So the reality was something very different from what I thought. And once you start, the more you do, the more the more self work you do, the more confidence you get. The right
Yeah.
approach is the answer to the question. Like, your approach should be right. Everything will be in place on time.
That's really good to know. So it's about just being comfortable in the job, and the longer you're in it, the more comfortable you'll get, and you'll understand how everything works.
And every day would look like this is the last day, because I don't think I'll be able to do it. Looking at those big tools, Spectra, Doctrace, would really used to be make me scared the first day. It
Yeah,
really
yeah, it
made
would.
me scared when I was told that, okay, Monika, you have to know this in 3 months. And then no, that's all right. It's like, go step by step. It's, you have confidence in yourself, make yourself a goal that, okay, I've achieved this. I used to have that small, chart in front of me, something like what are my goals, what I have achieved, and what I have actually done. So when you do something, just write it and celebrate. This is what I used to do.
Nice. That's really good. So let's talk a little bit more about your job specifically. And this is a bit of an interesting question, but what does your day-to-day life look like as a cybersecurity analyst? So what does your job include? Is it just looking at Splunk dashboards all day? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Like, what I like right now, I'm working more into non-technical, but then I'll talk about more into what I used to work as a cybersecurity analyst at Superloop. I worked there for 9 months. So it's a wide range of work which we have to do, and which is very exciting, to be honest. It's not only about talking about detections and mitigation. It's not only talking about Splunk all the time. You're only given a very small piece of work. For example, let me talk about one of the tools, that is Doctrace. The work was basically more to check what are the detections that are coming to the organizations, and that was very beautifully formed with the form of a very beautiful computer, and there was attacks coming on the computers with that particular IPs. Very, very, very nice when it used to come. But the work is just, you have to check whether that IP is legitimate or not, whether it's a malicious. If it's not, that's fine. You just have to write it down as a report that, okay, this is not. So this is one of the tasks which was actually related to, we talk about threat detections. Now, if actually there's a malicious activity, it's simple, like most of the time it's not. But if it's there, then you have to just report, and you have to tell and put it in a report form of that, yes, there was something which we really need to look upon. And maybe it's a false detection sometimes. This is one of the work. Second was like working more into risk assessments, for example, UpGuard. This is more of when you talk about third-party risk assessments and all. This is something different that I'm coming on, more into, I should say, non-technical side. more into risk and compliance side. So the cybersecurity analyst work is not only just wearing a hat and checking the detections all the time. Our cybersecurity analyst does a lot of work. He actually talks about the policies, procedures. For example, if the policies and procedures, for example, in my case, they had to be abide by the ISO 27001 standards or maybe NIST framework. And those ISO 27001 are source of truth. Simple. The policies are written. The ISO 2701 is what it is, right? It is what it is. So you just have to audit both of them, compare, and you'll be given a piece of work. Not that you have to actually do the whole work, just a small piece of work in a particular day. So that's one case. Then sometimes you have to just make that reports, incidents, detections. In Jira, you have to detect. Sometimes you have to just collaborate with different teams about different things. It's very interesting. The work which a cybersecurity analyst does is amazing, I must say. If you have that passion, you'll actually love it. Just love it. So, in a nutshell, you'll actually do a technical and non-technical together.
So, just talking about the frameworks, because you mentioned ISO 2701 there, which is like an auditing framework. Do you guys use particular frameworks in the organization for cybersecurity? For example, we've got NIST and SANS and those sort of frameworks. Does your organization adopt any of those specifically, or is it a mixture of frameworks?
Yeah. So different organizations use different frameworks. For example, in my organization, because it was more into internet connectivities and all, so we had to actually follow those ISO 27001 standards. Like it's simple, like whether your company is using encryption. It's one of the, I'm just giving you an example. Are you having proper encryption frameworks? Are you doing proper trainings? The answer is yes, no. And if not, then you actually have to start doing it. That's it. So very simple. It's like very easy standards are written. You just have to abide by them. And that's the reason why companies are emphasizing so much on cybersecurity, because they actually have to follow the standards. It actually starts with the regulators, standards, the frameworks, which you actually have to follow.
So, in terms of the cybersecurity framework, because I think ISO 2701 that's more of an auditing framework, right? So, in terms of the cybersecurity framework, do you guys use NIST or SANS, or which framework do you use for that? Do you know?
Yeah, so it all depends again on the company to company. Like for example, in one of the companies I used to, we right now also I'm using NIST framework. So NIST framework is basically, again, all the standards are almost similar, but then it all depends like which company uses which framework. So if we talk about NIST, they have different standards. Again, they have to one of the standards that is followed in NIST is again the encryption. As I said, like they are almost similar, so you have to just abide by them.
So you were just talking about some tools that you use on the job, and that leads into my next question. What sort of tools do you use as a cyber analyst on the job?
Yeah. That's a good question. So as I just spoke about duck trace, right? You actually have to check the incident response. You have to check the detections and remediation plans on them. So that was one of the duck trace, which you actually check what is the malicious, what are the malicious traffic that is entering our systems, how to detect those threats, and how to actually check how to follow certain protocols to mitigate those threats. So this is one of the tools which I've used. Doctor is very, very interesting. One of my favorite tools, because the visualization is so interesting. You'll love it. You'll just don't want to leave it at all. Second was, Crowdstrike, which is very commonly used. Crowdstrike is a tool which was one of my main work in the company as a cybersecurity analyst. We have to actually check it every day. So, for example, there are certain certain aspects which are actually blocked. For example, no one can actually download certain files. You're not allowed to download files from your organization, right? So they'll be actually blocking the traffic. So if you're actually trying to do it, it will be actually traced in the CrowdStrike. And I can see that detection very clearly over there. Now, my role is very exciting. I used to see that detection, and I could actually figure out who's the employee, who is doing what. I used to actually go to that person and I knew everything. I was like a police, I used to know everything, at what time, at what date he actually tried to pull that file. And it's my roles and responsibilities that I actually ping that person. But then, we have rights, we have responsibilities, but then you have to be super kind. You have to act in a very nice way. Maybe that person didn't knew. And most of the time it used to happen because people used to do it unknowingly. So that's very interesting part of CrowdStrike, which I really loved it. So that was one of the part. And then sometimes there are detections as well, which you actually have to face or something like that. This is two tools, very interesting. Third one, which I talked about, was the Vectra. The UpGuard tool, the third-party risk assessment tool, which is very, very popular nowadays. So if you talk about risk assessments, you actually, for example, you have to collaborate with a company called as, say, Amazon or whatever. Like I actually have to do some I have to actually do some dealership with them. And now I really need to make sure that I'm actually approaching the right company, whether they have those protocols, they're actually complying with the particular standards. For example, are they ISO 27001 compliant? And it's my duty to assess those people by the third-party risk assessment tools. And Vectra and UpGuard used to help with that one. So to collaborate with with external stakeholders, have regular catch-ups with them. This was one of my jobs as well over there. So yeah. And then there are other tools which I had been using before: Splunk, Jira, Confluence. These are the tools which I always used to do on and off. This is what I can remember right now. And there are n number of tools which I'm using right now as well, that is on GRC platforms.
So those are the types of tools that you use on the job. Just going back to CrowdStrike as well, I've heard of CrowdStrike, and as far as I know, it's a really popular tool that's being used quite widely at the moment by banks and all those sort of big companies. When it got to learning how to use CrowdStrike, did you get some sort of formal training around that? Was there some sort of e-learning that you did? How did you learn to use that platform?
That's a good question. That's a good question, because I remember how I used to struggle. Because there's a screen that is dashboard in front of you, and it's like, what to do now? All right, what to do? And to be honest, nowadays every tool has online trainings. Every tool has online. You just need to be alert. Alert. Look in the online trainings, that's what I said in the beginning, do some research work. Everything is written in Google. Just go ahead. I remember that people used to come to me, okay, Monika, can you tell me which firewall is being striked off and how to, and I used to think, what are they talking about? I have no idea how to see a firewall in a CrowdStrike. And then I used to Google, I used to do research, do that work. And honestly, if you help yourself, people will help you. So if you've done your homework, you've done your self-analysis, this is the approach I follow. I do my best, whatever I can do, and till the end. And out of 10 out of 8 times, it's okay. You fail also, and people will try to help you, but they can see what is the approach you're following and how you're actually trying to approach them, rather than just saying, can you just tell me how to do? Just do your self-analysis, try to do as much as you can, and then come up with questions. They will like it.
Right. So rather than just going to your manager or supervisor and asking them, how do I do this? It's more about, doing the research yourself and trying to answer most of the questions yourself, and then going to your manager or supervisor with, some of the things that you might not understand.
So this is one of the answers. This is how you can do, And
Yeah.
to be honest, I didn't know. You asked me, Petru, I'll be very honest with you. I didn't know. And I
Yeah.
don't know till now how to do things. I do it every day, take it as a challenge. And that's the approach that I follow. I just told you, right? And this is the key to success to an industry if you want to be into cybersecurity. And that's why they say you have to be on toes all the time. You have to be passionate, very keen to learn. And honestly, people around you are very nice, very nice. They will always help you. But it's always good to take as less time of people because they're also busy, right?
And you know what? That's exactly why I'm so passionate about cybersecurity as well, because it's an ever evolving industry. You never stop learning in it. There's always something new to learn, and you know, I've had careers before that you get to a certain point and you just stop learning. There's just nothing there to know anymore. The excitement goes away. But yeah, particularly with cybersecurity, there's always a new exploit that's coming out. There's a new, new data breach, and there's news about it, and there's always stuff that's happening in the cyberspace. So absolutely love it. So I know exactly what you're talking about there. So the next question I had was, during your time studying, through all of your studies, was there something particularly that you look back on now and wish that you learnt more about, or something that completely got missed during your education?
I will just say that you actually get that confidence once you lay the basic foundation. And but honestly, like if you have that zeal and passion to learn new tools, that's absolutely amazing. But then, yes, having said that, it would be good, like if students can be just familiarized with these new tools, because once they go into the industry, they'll get scared. Like new terms, they actually scare you in your new job. For example, when I just use the words like Vectra, dark trace. Now, if people will hear, or if I would have heard, I would have said, yeah, I've actually heard of that. And I know what it does. So it actually makes the other person as well as you feel comfortable. So that's the only insight. Otherwise, you actually learn everything new because there are new tools coming every day. And we cannot just stop learning any time of the time of our life.
So my next question, and I know you mentioned a little bit about this before, about asking questions to your managers and stuff, but if you were, sitting at your desk and you get some sort of pop up on your Crowdstrike dashboard and you're not too sure about what it is, do you have some sort of manager or supervisor close by that you can reach out to and ask them how to handle that situation, or are you by yourself? Is there any support that you have during your job?
Very nice question. And actually, I must take it as a challenge because I have been into certain aspects of my career where there was no one to be told. For example, my managers only know what to do. You have to do the work, right? Your managers only, you cannot be relying on your team all the time. So you have to be very, very smart to ask questions again. So because team is always there, people are around, and I used to be in such a place where my team was all in Sydney. I was the only person here in Melbourne. My team was my manager was only one day. Now what to do? Actually, there was so many things which I actually didn't know how to do, and people were coming on my desk. Monika, we really need to complete it. So can you just do it? Can you just do it? And now, what should I do? So it's like, again, the same theory, do what the best you can do, but you cannot do all the time because you have actually a limited time and limited resources. In that case, just approach the team who are around you, because you can always not be by yourself. Don't hesitate to ask questions who are in your team. Even if they are not in your team, there must be some relevant person who must be there to help you. For example, I was working as a security analyst, but then my work was more with support team as well. So there were certain questions. If I get answers from support team, I can actually get my work easily done, right? So step by step follow. For example, I have some work in CrowdStrike, say, for example, and now there is some issue that is going on with me, and I know that if I actually get that particular answer from support, maybe I can go to level 2 and then I can answer that question. So what I do is I never hesitate to ask questions, approach team. If you have to do, you have to do. So people will really appreciate your in taking initiatives, your inclusiveness, and taking things priority as a priority. This is super important to understand that in an industry, you need to understand the priorities. And for that, even if you have to approach the higher level management or someone, just do it.
So we're moving towards the end of the interview now, and one of the questions I had is, what what advice would you give to some of the students that might be graduating from their courses and moving into the workplace and they're looking for work? What advice can you give them?
So I'll tell you a very important thing, which actually I have gained with my experience talking to people, networking. Talk to similar sort of people who actually you want to be. Like, for example, if you want to be a cybersecurity analyst, start networking with people who are actually in this field. I'm telling you, they're going to help you like anything. Networking is the super important first key. Of course, don't hesitate to grab for opportunities, even if it is a volunteer, even if it is someone is saying that I want some help. I mean, I am always ready to volunteer as much as I can. Like, for example, I'm a part of different organizations like AWS and ISA. You talk about ISACA, you talk about helping people, you talk about mentoring. Not Don't do it just because I do it like it's my passion. The more you help, the more you gain. This is one of the things which I do, and it's actually indirectly has actually gained a lot of confidence and has actually, in my eyes, I find myself as a value add person. So you have to see yourself and assess yourself every day. Self-assess yourself. That's what I do every day. Like, rather than people assessing you, rather than people telling you that, Monika, you have to do this, self-assess yourself. For example, you can actually do every day you can do something extra, and that you also know. So no one can judge you better than you are. Third is, of course, never give up. Every day there'll be challenges in cybersecurity, and there might be sometimes you feel low. This is not mine. But then again, get up. You know, you it's actually just a can-do attitude. This is what I do every day. A positive attitude. It's super important. Always be ready for exploring more and more. Keep yourself updated with the latest news. Keep your mind and eyes open. Keep your LinkedIn always updated, your CV always updated. For example, if someone comes in, jumps in and say, okay, Monika, okay, are you working here? All right. So can you just share your CV with me? And my CV is not ready. So my first insight is to keep your LinkedIn and your CV always updated, so that if someone wants to share with you, just do it. And when you go to networking events, I mean, this is what I follow. Don't go there just because you need a job. No, go there to know people, to know their experiences, to know them, what the work they are doing, to learn from them, to have interests in them. So this will actually help you also, and will actually gain a lot of confidence as well. Rest, everything is like everyone knows, but these are few of the things which I really follow, and I just love what you do. At the end, I'll say just love what you do.
I totally agree with that, and I think that you've given me some inspiration as well, because I remember before the virus, I used to, drive to uni or drive to work, and I used to listen to cybersecurity podcasts and listen to news that was happening, attacks and things that were happening in the cyberspace, and I kind of lost that routine when it got to working from home and stuff, because I would stop driving to work every morning or driving to uni. So I kind of stopped doing that. So that's definitely something that I need to get back into. So we've come to the end of the interview. So the last question I have is there anything else that you wanted to add to this interview? Was there a message that you needed to get across to some of the students, or anything else that you wanted to add?
All I want to say is just thank you to you, Petru. It was just lovely meeting you. And it actually has a flashback back of my whole career. And honestly, it's a very good initiative that you have taken. I wish I would have actually gone through that interview when I was in my student. I was taking this course, because the insights and experiences that people have gone through, it actually really helps a lot, because this is the journey that what we have been through. And what I can say is that I'm always there on LinkedIn. I'm always approachable. I'm always there to help. Always there to share my experiences. If I can be of any help anyway, more than happy. Nothing can make me more happy than that. And again, thank you so much, Petru. It was a pleasure having you as a teacher, and I really, really miss Victoria University so much.
Thank you so much for that, Monika. And thank you for being here and accepting to do this interview. There's so many students out there, and not just students, but people that need to know or want to know about what a typical day as a cyber analyst would look like. And I think you've more than answered that. So thank you so much for being here and taking part in the interview.
I'll do that.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Petru. Nice having you. See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. So what did you think of that, guys? An interview with a cybersecurity analyst who has gone from being a student to getting into the job that she wants. Let me know how I did. Did I miss any questions? If you have any questions for Monika, you can drop them below in the comments. I'm sure that she'll come by and read some of those comments and respond to them. Other than that, let me know if there's a particular role or a position that you're looking at, or if you wanted to know more about in the cyber industry, and I'll see if I can reach out and find someone who's in that position and do an interview with them as well. So drop a comment below. Let me know how I did. Like, subscribe, bell icon, all that sort of stuff. I'll see you guys next time.